Okay, so what do you need for sketching outdoors? I brought here all my materials. I don't bring this whole kit with me. One of the things is my portable foldable tree stump in case I don't find anywhere to perch. But if you can, please try to you should be working a lot quicker than the time needed to really sit down somewhere. One of the possibilities is to actually bring A3 size papers, and that's fairly big. You want to clip them on with either one of these clips or both of them on both sides onto a drawing board, which sometimes has a handle on top, so you can do that. But apart from that, you can go a lot smaller. So you can have a gummed pad, watercolor pad, such as this with you, and this is white surface. You can have an A3 size just like that, but fold it up, and that gives you a total of 8 different pieces, 8 different pages. If you want to paint something larger, you can do it like that. Well, that was a sketch I was doing. I was doing some pen and ink, and then I just went right straight on with just watercolors. But basically, folding up an A3 size paper gives you a stiff enough surface. It doesn't need any backing board, and you can still hold or put down your painting kit next to it. The other possibility is, of course, having a sketchbook with you. This is a mid-tone mixed media sketchbook, and I worked on it. I'm about to finish it soon, and I will probably be working on a white sketchbook starting soon, which is just fine. It doesn't have to be fancy. It is essentially just a container. Think of it like a bag or a pocket where you're gathering all the pretty pebbles from the seashore. You are not gathering pebbles, you are gathering motifs, colors, patterns, and textures. So this is my sketchbook that I much prefer to bring this, but if I'm very short, if I'm going out with a very small pocket or a small bag, then this would actually live in my pocket. Now, as for sets of color, this is a homemade little kit that I made by selecting my favorite colors from various different brands, and I know exactly how they look like, so I can reach exactly to the right pot and just take it out. I use double-sided tape to keep them in place so they don't fall out if I tip it over accidentally. You could glue one of those little rings that they sell for cell phones. You could put that on the bottom, but I just much prefer this. This can actually really seriously live in my pocket. I can even fold this in half, and then that's it. That's all I need. Now, another version this is Winsor & Newton. This is the Cotman watercolor range. You can just buy the Cotman and start working with that. I love to have strong colors that with just one drop of water, they start working. Let's see. So one drop of water, and it actually gets a very strong color out of there. So this would be your test for whether or not your colors are strong enough. And also, you see, that used to be a very, very small watercolor brush, which is more for drawing than really painting. What I did is I bought this half a liter of white gouache, and then I just put a strip of that, and it sort of dries, it settles in there, and I can lift up a little bit of that. When I need some highlight on this mid-tone paper, like you see those lighter colors, then I can pick it up from there. So I can bring my white gouache with me without having to bring along my gouache in this tube format, which is also a possibility. But if you just want to go very, very small, you just bring your colors, bring your water brush, and whatever surface can fit into your pocket. As I said, this one would actually give you 8 different surfaces. So that's the easy version. That's another kit, just so, because I really don't want you to get hung up on brands and big kits and full-size watercolors. I will show you my scary big set as well. So this is again something I have added in the middle row. There was nothing in there, so I added my preferred colors there. And I also added some white gouache into the lid. I'm using these little wells here as well as the lid for painting, for creating loose lakes, to create those lighter washes that are more like, when I start working on a wet paper, and then I let some of those colors to sort of run around and let them live, let them run, let them paint the painting. I really like to allow the material to work, and I don't have an urge to control every single thing that happens on a canvas. Eventually, you will learn as you keep painting. You see, it's like full of mistakes. That's fine, because this whole thing is just about capturing what is there on the spot. Depending on how hot, how dry, how humid the weather is, depending on how long you take, how much water you add to your paints, what paints you use, it will have a different drying time, it will have a different, it will behave slightly differently. This was a lakeside and a reflection in the pond. So anyway, this is my other kit. As I said, again, I threw out my blacks and browns because I don't need them. Blacks and browns happen anyway, as you can see, without adding them, really, without sweating too hard on creating them. If you add certain colors one on top of the other, watercolor, the previous layers, even if it's dry, it comes up and it starts mixing up with whatever is added on top. Okay, so that's my other kit. This is a slightly bigger kit. I keep that there because I don't like all the rattling. I don't like to rattle around if it lives in my purse. And this one, I added the water brush in the middle and some empty half pan watercolor holders, these little pans. I again fill them up with this layer by layer. I added, I think, 2 or 3 layers, and then it sort of sinks down as it dries. And then I added them, so I have some white gouache in here as well. Yeah, this is why you want some. You either make sure that you really you push these little fingers over the half pans, or if they still rattle around, then you add just a tad of glue underneath. So you want to make sure that if this slips out of your hand, it doesn't scatter all around at your feet. So this is slightly bigger, but because you see I've used it a lot, this is not a brand new kit. I've been using it for, 5 years, 6 years. So they last a lot if you don't wash your brush out in between each brush stroke, which is something that my daughter has done when she was a teenager and she asked me to let her paint. And in 2 painting sessions, basically all my professional watercolor was gone because she had this urge of just washing out the brush between each brush stroke. So don't do that. Use that one color, whatever color you're working with, dab it all around, add it wherever it needs to be added, and then use the next color. Okay, so I also have this because this is a slightly bigger kit. And in case I don't work with this for a couple of, for some time, because I keep working with the smaller ones, then when I come back to it, I want to have a bit of a reference to know which color is where. So if I ever don't see it quite properly, what color is where, then I just flip over this lid and, okay, yeah, I know. So this one is, again, you can keep changing. If anything, you run out of color, you can buy new ones. Now, another thing, this is handy, but you really don't need to have it. It's just handy to have, and it comes, you don't have to get the Derwent one. You can get in any household supply. Oh yeah, this I much prefer this. This is even bigger. So you can wet your paints with this. You can actually very quickly, there are 2 ways of getting started. You can start adding a drop of water to each one of your colors like that. And then they are wet enough, you can actually pick them up with the brush right away, or you just take this and you go like that. And also on the lid, and you see all of a sudden it starts running. So everything, watercolor, comes up with some added water. Now I can no longer close this. I will need to wait for it to dry. Now the big scary kit, the one that I don't recommend you to take out with you because it's too big, it's too confusing, at least especially when you are beginning and especially when you are just sketching and not really earnestly painting. This is the one, it's I don't know how many. So it's a lot of colors. They are all, I took them out of the wrapping, and I have a strip of double-sided tape underneath all of them. So just in case this slips out of my hand, it's not falling out. And also I glued a couple of these felt tip things, these felt pieces on the bottom, because it kept slipping off the rocks. And when you are painting on the precipice, which I often do, this can be a little bit of a danger. You don't want to drop an expensive watercolor kit into the ocean. This also can hold a couple of paintbrushes. This is a big one, but I much prefer to work with Tacklon brushes, which are these, they are basically a plastic hair. Now, when it comes to brushes, this one is a squirrel brush. It's a mop. It's called a mop. It's very much like working with your own ponytail. I'm not crazy about it because it doesn't have, I just feel like it doesn't have any resistance. And the Tacklon brushes, they have a bit of a resistance. You can also, you see that the size of the brush with the full pan watercolors, which is the reason why I have added some of these full pans here, because I can pick them up easily with a wide brush. I don't need a small brush to tinker with. A full pan is, you can just pick it up and you can work fairly large, as you see right there. That's like a full size, full pan watercolor worked with a wider brush. You can also use your small water brush by picking up the color. And then let me just show you. You can do a couple of things. So yes, you can draw with it, but you can also just pick up the color. Was it this? Yep, that was that. And you can pull it down like that, okay? So it's not necessarily important to work. You can actually use a brush in several different ways. You don't have to have a lot of drawing. You can use a pointy, a fairly long water brush as if it was the same size as this. So these are just some tricks and tips. And as you see, this has way too many colors. You would actually have to think, stop in your tracks and like, oh, which one was the orange that I was working with? So I made this little, and I laminated this little, I just worked with all the colors in the order that they are glued into my case here, and I added the number and I added the name, so when I run out of any of these colors, I can order them one by one and I know exactly which color I was working with. But all these reds and all these blues and even the greens and of course blacks and browns, they all run together and you can't really see which one was it. But if you have a reference chart such as this, it's easier to go back and, oh, okay, that's my favorite orange. Cool. Or that was the yellow that I needed. Also, this one is going to be falling off your lap. It will be blown away by the wind and all that. And just the whole kit in general is quite heavy. So I don't recommend you to take this with you, but I just wanted to show you because it is an option. Also, I'm aware there's a war going on. If you are not crazy about Russian-made watercolors, then there is a Ukrainian brand. It's called Rosa, which is also very affordable. So if you either find St. Petersburg watercolors, which are the Russian brand, it's very affordable, or the rosa watercolors. They are also very affordable. And in fact, I'm convinced that they are better quality than Winsor & Newton professional watercolors. Now, when it comes to cool and warm colors, I just wanted to show you. So let me show you here. So on this one, you can see that as I was working on, I started with a wet paper, and the initial couple of strokes with the mountain, that's the mountain top. I had to go up there if I wanted to give somebody a phone call, because down here, there was just no reception. I was at the end of the world in the Lake District. But then, of course, all this greenery. I really wanted to, instead of creating a Lego landscape, which is very easy to do if you are working with a green, with a specific green, you will end up using just the one green, and it will be a very boring landscape. But you want to add warmer colors, and I just added straight on top of my existing greens. I added some strokes of yellow and some light green with a bit of white gouache, and then yellow again. So you see, you have to have a bit of a creamy, very good quality watercolor in order to do this. And then I added some bluey washes where I wanted to show, I wanted to give you the impression that this is in the shadow. None of it is black, but as you see from a distance, it actually looks like some of the pieces that are in the shadow are almost black. Whatever, if you are ever painting something and your mind says, oh, let's reach for the black, please look again, because quite possibly that is a dark purple, dark blue, dark green, dark red even. So make sure that you look again. This is again an option. This is what I did recently out in the fields. These trees were backlit, and so I wanted to give an impression of some of those sunlit patches of the tree, of the other side of the tree, peeking through. And so I added yellow with white gouache on top of everything else. And all of this is just the dark side, the shadowy side of the trees. There, this one, I actually used a purpley blue to show a branch that is in the shadow that was backlit, and there was a sunlit field behind it. So these are some tips and tricks, and I hope you enjoy it. It's really not that complicated. Make sure that you keep it easy, keep it small, don't bring a lot of stuff. If you bring this, then that's too much. Yeah, this should be enough. In fact, if that's too much, then bring something like this. So have fun, and let me know how it goes.